In the quiet embrace of our small coastal town, where the sea whispered secrets to the shore, I grew up surrounded by a group of friends that felt more like family. Among us was Esme, a figure of unmatched charisma and leadership. She was the sun, and we, her planets, gravitated naturally towards her warmth and light. Our childhood was a tapestry of golden memories, woven from days spent under the sun, laughter echoing against the backdrop of the endless sea. It was a time of innocence, of unbreakable bonds formed in the sand and surf, a time when Esme's protective nature was a beacon of guidance, not a harbinger of the darkness to come. But as the years peeled away the layers of our youth, revealing the complexities of adulthood, Esme's demeanor began to shift. What once felt like carefree leadership slowly morphed into a meticulous orchestration of our lives. Her suggestions on the trivialities of life, what to wear, whom to befriend, where to go, became more frequent and insistent. We laughed it off initially, attributing it to Esme's strong personality, her need to ensure that her circle thrived. But there was a subtle change in the air, a tightening of the strings that bound us to her. Our gatherings, once scattered across the town and its beautiful surroundings, became increasingly centered around Esme's house. It was as if she was drawing us closer, weaving us tighter into the fabric of her world. The beach, once the stage of our unbridled joy, saw us less and less. In its place, Esme's home became our new haven, or so we were led to believe. The shift was gradual, almost imperceptible, like the slow rise of the tide that eventually leaves you stranded. I remember the first time I felt the weight of Esme's gaze, not as a friend, but as something else, something calculating. It was during one of these home gatherings, her eyes flicking over the faces of our circle, lingering just a tad too long, as if memorizing our compliance, our submission to her unspoken authority. It was then that the laughter began to ring hollow in my ears, the first whisper of unease stirring in my gut. Despite these creeping shadows, Esme's proposal caught me off guard. It was presented with a certainty that brooked no argument, a declaration rather than a question. My heart, tangled in a web of confusion and a misplaced sense of loyalty, led me to say yes. I mistook my pounding heart for love, not recognizing it as the drumbeat of fear. Our engagement marked not the promise of a shared future, but the solidification of Esme's control, the final step in her quiet conquest of our lives. The wedding, much like our transformed gatherings, was devoid of the joy and spontaneity that had colored our younger years. Instead, it was a meticulously planned exhibition, a display of Esme's dominion masqueraded as a celebration. As I stood there, exchanging vows, I felt an invisible chain wrap around me, the cold weight of realization settling in my stomach. This was not the beginning of a new chapter, but the sealing of a pact I hadn't known I'd agreed to. A pact that would lead us all into the shadows, with Esme holding the strings, puppeteering our descent into a nightmare from which there seemed to be no awakening. As the days melted into a semblance of marital bliss, the transformation within our circle, under Esme's meticulous design, became starkly evident. The warmth and camaraderie that had once defined our group were gradually replaced by a chilling undercurrent of control and isolation. Esme, who had once stood as the lighthouse guiding us through the storms of life, had slowly morphed into the tempest itself, her once protective embrace turning into a suffocating grip. Our social gatherings, once vibrant and spontaneous celebrations of friendship, transformed into orchestrated assemblies within the confines of Esme's meticulously arranged domain. Each invitation, veiled as an offer of companionship, felt more like a summons, a mandatory attendance to a court where Esme reigned supreme. The laughter and joy that once flowed freely were now tempered by her omnipresent gaze, each of us acutely aware of the lines we dared not cross, the topics we veered away from, under her watchful eyes. The transformation was not just in the dynamics of our gatherings, but in the very essence of our being. Esme's influence seeped into our individual lives, her opinions and desires becoming our mandates. Personal choices, from the trivial to the significant, were no longer ours to make freely. Esme had a say in everything, her approval or disapproval dictating the course of our actions. The realization that we were losing pieces of ourselves, bit by bit, to accommodate her vision of who we should be, was a slow and painful awakening. It was during this period of transformation that the true extent of Esme's manipulative prowess came to light. She had an uncanny ability to exploit our insecurities, to play on our fears and desires, weaving a narrative that always placed her at the center of our universe. Her suggestions, once benign, became directives that shaped our lives. We found ourselves retreating from the world outside, our circle shrinking as Esme's influence expanded, enveloping us in a reality of her making. The starkness of this transformation hit me fully in the days leading up to our wedding. The event, which should have been a celebration of love and partnership, was instead a cold, calculated display of Esme's dominance and control. The guest list was a carefully curated collection of individuals who played specific roles in Esme's life, each invitation a strategic placement in her social chess game. The setting, the decor, even the vows were reflections not of our mutual desires but of Esme's singular vision. Standing at the altar, exchanging vows in front of an audience that felt more like witnesses to a coronation than participants in a union of hearts, the weight of my reality settled heavily upon me. I had become a pawn in Esme's game. My autonomy surrendered at the altar of her ambition. The vows we spoke, instead of binding us in mutual love and respect, felt like chains, locking me into a role I hadn't consciously chosen. In the wake of our wedding, as the facade of marital bliss began to crumble, the full extent of Esme's transformation from friend to tyrant became painfully clear. The woman I had married, the woman I thought I knew, was a carefully constructed facade behind which lay a manipulative, controlling entity that thrived on power and submission. The realization that I, along with our friends, was trapped in a web of her making was a wake-up call, a stark revelation that set the stage for the rebellion that simmered beneath the surface, waiting for the moment to break free from Esme's grip. In the aftermath of our meticulously orchestrated wedding, a chilling reality began to crystallize. Esme's control, once veiled under the guise of concern and camaraderie, had morphed into an overt expression of dominion. Our circle, once vibrant and autonomous, had been whittled down into a shadow of its former self, each member wearing the marks of Esme's manipulation like invisible chains. It was in this oppressive atmosphere that the true depth of our descent became apparent. Esme, with a masterful touch, had introduced the concept of self-improvement sessions under the pretense of deepening our bonds and enhancing our well-being. The irony of the situation was not lost on me. The very person who had eroded our sense of self was now posing as the savior, promising to rebuild what she had systematically dismantled. These sessions, held in the sterile environment of a room that felt more like an interrogation chamber than a sanctuary of healing, were anything but therapeutic. Each meeting was an exercise in psychological endurance. Esme, assuming the role of facilitator, wielded her insights like a scalpel, dissecting our fears, insecurities, and desires with surgical precision. The air would thicken with tension as one by one, we were encouraged, no, compelled, to lay bare our vulnerabilities. But instead of fostering understanding and growth, these revelations became ammunition, stored in Esme's arsenal to be used at her discretion. The effect was insidious, a slow poison that eroded our will, leaving us dependent on her guidance, her approval. As the sessions progressed, the transformation within the group was palpable. The dynamic, once characterized by mutual support and genuine affection, had degraded into a hierarchy of control, with Esme perched at the top. Our interactions were no longer spontaneous but calculated, each word and gesture measured to avoid displeasing her. The laughter that once filled our gatherings was now rare and strained, a feeble echo of happier times. It was during this period of enforced vulnerability and feigned healing that the true nature of Esme's ambition became clear to me. She wasn't merely content with being the focal point of our lives. She sought to reshape us in her image, to erode our individuality until we became extensions of her will. The realization hit me with the force of a breaking wave, a cold awakening to the depth of my entrapment. The notion that I had become a mere puppet in Esme's hands, my actions and thoughts dictated by her desires, sparked a rebellion within me. The person I saw in the mirror was a stranger, a reflection of Esme's manipulation rather than my true self. The love I had once felt, a mixture of admiration and dependency, curdled into resentment. I began to see the treatments not as sessions of growth but as shackles, each breakthrough a step deeper into the abyss of Esme's design. This period of awakening was a double-edged sword. With the clarity of my situation came the overwhelming sense of helplessness. How does one break free from a cage when the bars are made of psychological bonds, when the jailer holds sway not just over your actions, but over the very way you perceive yourself? The struggle for autonomy, for the right to own my thoughts and feelings, became my silent battle. It was a fight not just for my freedom, but for the essence of who I was. A battle against the dissent that threatened to consume us all. The tension that had been building, fueled by years of manipulation and silent acquiescence, reached its breaking point on a night that mirrored the turmoil brewing within me. Dark clouds loomed overhead, threatening a storm that felt all too symbolic of the impending confrontation with Esme. The air was thick with electricity, a palpable charge that seemed to ignite my resolve. I had reached a precipice, and the choice was stark and clear. Continue to live under Esme's shadow, or confront the source of our collective malaise. The evening began under the guise of normalcy, a routine gathering at Esme's, but the atmosphere was anything but ordinary. The usual pleasantries felt hollow, the tension in the room a tangible entity that seemed to choke the very air we breathed. My heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination as I navigated the evening, each moment stretching into eternity as I awaited the opportunity to confront Esme. When it finally came, the exchange between Esme and me was a cataclysm, a release of years of pent-up frustration, anger, and betrayal. Words were our weapons, and we wielded them with the precision of seasoned warriors, cutting deep into the heart of our shared history. Esme, ever the master manipulator, parried with accusations and denials, her words designed to wound, to assert her dominance and control. But the power dynamics had shifted. I was no longer the compliant victim, but a rebel with a cause, fighting for my freedom and the soul of our group. The confrontation escalated, our voices rising above the storm's howl, a tumultuous symphony that mirrored the chaos within. The air crackled with the energy of our battle, a clash of wills that was as much a struggle for psychological liberation as it was a personal vendetta. Esme's face, usually so composed, flickered with the realization that her grip was slipping, that the puppet she had so carefully manipulated was cutting its strings. In the heat of the moment, driven by a desperation to end the cycle of control and manipulation, I crossed a line from which there was no return. The final exchange was a blur, a moment of madness where the boundary between self-defense and aggression blurred. Esme's fall, both literal and metaphorical, marked the end of her reign, her body a testament to the destructive power of obsession and control. The aftermath of the confrontation was a surreal landscape of silence and chaos. The storm had passed, leaving in its wake a silence that was deafening, a void filled with the echoes of our conflict. As I stood there, amidst the wreckage of our relationship and the life Esme had built around us, I was acutely aware of the gravity of my actions. The liberation I had sought came at a cost, a heavy burden that I would carry with me. In those moments of solitude, as the reality of what had transpired settled in, I was confronted with the enormity of my journey. I had sought to break free from Esme's control, to reclaim my autonomy, and restore the balance within our group. But freedom came with a price, a stark reminder of the lengths to which I had gone to escape the web of manipulation. The confrontation, though a catalyst for change, was also a mirror reflecting the darkest parts of ourselves, a testament to the destructive potential that lies within the pursuit of power and control. In the wake of that fateful confrontation, the world I knew was irrevocably altered. The once impenetrable facade of our tightly knit group lay in ruins, a poignant reminder of the cost of our freedom from Esme's tyrannical grip. The silence that followed her demise was not one of peace, but a haunting void, filled with the ghosts of our past actions and the lingering specter of Esme's influence. As I navigated the days that followed, the weight of my actions bore heavily upon me. The physical absence of Esme did little to dispel the psychological chains that had bound us to her. My friends, once vibrant individuals with dreams and aspirations of their own, had become shells of their former selves, their spirits dimmed by the shadow of manipulation that had darkened our lives. The hope that Esme's death would serve as a liberation was a naive fantasy. Instead, we found ourselves adrift, struggling to piece together the fragments of our identities that had been eroded under her regime. The realization that our ordeal had left indelible scars was a bitter pill to swallow. Conversations with my friends, once filled with laughter and dreams, were now tinged with a pervasive sense of loss. We were survivors, yes, but of a war that had been waged on the battleground of our psyches. The struggle to reclaim our autonomy, to rediscover the essence of who we were before Esme's manipulation, became our shared quest. A journey fraught with challenges as we each grappled with the remnants of control that lingered like a toxic mist. In this new reality, the illusion of Esme's omnipresence was a constant companion. Her voice, her laugh, the sharpness of her critiques echoed in the silence, a haunting reminder of the influence she had wielded over us. It was as if, even in death, Esme refused to relinquish her hold, her psychological imprint a chain that tethered us to a past we desperately sought to escape. The path to healing was a labyrinthine journey through the maze of our collective trauma. Each step forward was matched with moments of regression as we battled the demons of guilt, anger, and betrayal that Esme had nurtured within us. The quest for forgiveness, both for ourselves and for each other, became a pivotal theme in our recovery. We had been complicit in our descent, our silence a testament to the power of manipulation and fear. Acknowledging this complicity was the first step towards reclaiming our agency, a painful but necessary reckoning with our past. As I reflect on the aftermath of our liberation from Esme's control, I am reminded of the complexity of human relationships and the delicate balance between love and manipulation. The journey from the darkness of Esme's influence towards the light of autonomy and self-discovery is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Yet, the scars we bear are a constant reminder of the cost of freedom, the price paid in the currency of our innocence and trust. This narrative, my recounting of our descent and subsequent struggle for liberation, is more than a tale of triumph over adversity. It is a cautionary saga, a reflection on the fragility of the self in the face of manipulation and control. The aftermath of our ordeal with Esme, while marked by the sorrow of loss, is also a story of hope, a beacon for those who find themselves ensnared in the web of another's influence, a reminder that the path to freedom, though fraught with hardship, is a journey worth taking.